Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of eDiscovery After Hours. My guest this week is Andrew Kent, COO at Page One Legal out of Nashville, Tennessee. In this episode, we covered what it was like for him growing up, bouncing all around the country as his dad changed jobs, and whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. We talked about how he landed in Music City 10 years ago and how it's changed in the time since. How he thinks about running meetings and allowing people space to vent while staying productive at Page One, and some of the things that they have coming down the pike for their clients and prospects alike. Sponsor this week is Discovery Master. You're probably spending a lot of time trying to figure out how many documents do we have left to review? What's been found? How much does it cost? Who are my good and bad reviewers? That's a lot of manual effort, a lot of time shuffling around Excel sheets and spending time to try to quantify the things that can be available right at your fingertips. Discovery Master uses Relativity's Kepler API framework so that no matter where the data lives, on-prem, in Rel 1, hosted with any channel partner, you can see all of your document review projects in one place and get real-time insights into what's going on. Thanks for tuning in.
You don't know how to drink, your whole generation.
Drinks on the house.
Yes, sir.
No, wait a second. Drinks are 50% off.
Right.
No, wait a second. Double the price of everything.
And I work only 16 hours a day.
A union man only works 8 hours a day.
I belong to 2 unions.
And now, eDiscovery After Hours with your host, Ryan Short.
Andrew Kent, welcome to the show, man. Cheers.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. What are we drinking?
A little MGD today, keeping it Milwaukee.
Yeah. So what's the deal? Is that the hometown?
Oh, I have many hometowns. I think I've lived in 11 states by this time, but I did spend quite a few years in Wisconsin. Obviously, the best beers there. I considered doing a little Natty Boh for my folks out on the Chesapeake, but you just can't find it out here.
11 states by this point. So were you a military kid? What was all the moving around?
No, my dad was an engineer, and in the 80s and 90s, all of the automotive places were shifting around, heading from the Midwest down to the South. So we bumped around quite a few different times, and then went to law school in DC, and at that time lived in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, just to go ahead and cross all those three off. So just keep moving around a little bit.
I love it. Did you like moving around a lot as a kid? Was that, you're a pretty outgoing personality, right? Anybody who follows you on LinkedIn knows that you're not a shy guy. Is that something that developed later in life? Did you resent moving schools all the time, or did you enjoy the change of pace?
I didn't resent it. I think my sister did. My sister went to 4 different high schools over her span. I went to 3 different middle schools. To me, it was great because you kept resetting. You'd make a mistake, you'd do something stupid. When you went to the next place, you just didn't do it again. So to me, it really became just more and more versions of myself that as I kept resetting, I just kept getting a little bit better and maybe growing up a little bit more. So it didn't really cause me a problem, honestly.
Yeah. And it was nice too, right? Because that was pre-social media. So nobody knew, right? You really could reinvent yourself back then.
That's true. When I left behind my glasses at one of our moves, no one could come behind me and say, where are their glasses? Or, oh, I noticed 2 states ago you had braces. What happened there? You just got to leave things behind.
Yeah, that's right. I grew up in a small town. I went to the same public schools with the same kids from kindergarten through 12th grade. So there was absolutely no reinvention. A lot of my school teachers had my dad in class. So you were pigeonholed at an early age, and it was tough to shift.
I couldn't have that.
And you're in Nashville now, right?
Just outside of Nashville in Murfreesboro. But, you guys just keep going to Nashville. Leave us alone out here in the country. As I mentioned to Ryan earlier, Nashville is full. We don't really need anyone else moving there or any more bachelorette programs. But, if you want to go, at least, stay up there, please.
How long have you been in the Nashville area?
Surprisingly, it's been 10 years now. It doesn't feel like it, but a little over 10 years now.
That's wild. So I interned on Music Row the summer of '09. And I've had family in the Nashville area since the early 90s. And it's wild how much it's changed. Like even in '09 when I was there, you didn't have like bars named after, major country stars. It was still kind of seedy. It was still, I don't want to say dangerous, but like you had to keep your head on a swivel a little bit. And like 2012, 2013, I feel like was the fulcrum point where it became like every bachelorette in the country wanted to have her party there. And every like college grad who didn't move to Chicago, LA, or New York wanted to move to Nashville. I mean, it's a different town. There's like glass high rises everywhere. You can barely recognize it.
Yeah, it's horrible. Nashville really isn't here anymore. They knocked down Nashville and put all those towers on top of it.
Yeah.
When I moved here, and I moved here from DC, everyone I knew was moving either to Denver or to Seattle. I ended up coming to Nashville. Downtown Nashville was a ghost town.
Yes.
No one was downtown. There were multiple large 12, 14-story buildings completely empty.
Yeah.
Everyone was down in the suburbs in Brentwood and other places. And then, all of a sudden, all the outsiders came in, started buying up land, started putting these high rises. There's just glass towers everywhere.
Yeah.
And as someone who honestly isn't a big fan of heights or really elevators, it's horrible. It's horrible. You're like, oh, another great 30-story building. Yeah, no. And of course, all the law firms love to be on those top floors. So, I miss the 12, 13-story maximums at least in DC.
Yeah. Why don't you come to the Page One offices? We're on the ground floor, and I don't have to get on your creepy elevator or take the stairs. Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. We're on the 4th floor. I tell myself 3 to 4 mornings a week, I'm going to walk upstairs today. Never do. And then between that and then filming too many episodes of this podcast, I started telling people like COVID-19, that 19 stands for how many pounds I gained in the first 6 months. So I'm going to have to, I think season 2 of this episode will do like juice cleanses. And that'll be it, It'd
be nice. You're not too far from the monument, right? You ever walk up the monument stairs, get a little hike in?
You know what? I haven't. I'm impressed that you know that. We are 2 blocks from Monument Circle. For those who don't know, Indianapolis, the biggest small town in America. We have the most monuments outside of Washington, D.C. Not per capita, just like in raw numbers. And Soldiers and Sailors Monument is the center of the city. And it's this really cool old, it was from, it commemorates like the War of 1812 or something. It's an old monument, but it's got an observation deck.
Civil War. But
yep. What's that?
The Civil War.
Okay. So there you go. So you know more than me about the monument that's, 30 yards that way. How do you know Indy?
My mom was born and raised in Shelbyville. I have a lot of family still in the Indy area. So I know the hot spots, at least, the largest children's museum, the monuments. I can give you a little tour. Circle, was it Circle Center? What do they call the mall? I can't remember.
Circle Center Mall. Yeah.
And then that hack basketball team, Pacers or something, that likes to go places and start fights. I can't remember exactly.
Hey, I wouldn't say they started the fight, but they did end it. The Malice at the Palace. That was sad. Are you a Bucks guy?
I do have my Dennis Rodman ball behind me. I'm a Pistons guy.
Oh, the Bad Boys era.
That's right.
Yeah, Isaiah. I hear you. So I was going to ask. I see some signed basketballs back there. Who are the signatures?
The ones you can see, I got to be careful to turn around. The ones you can see, I think there's a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which again, being a Pistons fan, I'm not a real big fan of him as a basketball player, but, has done a lot of great things, I think, in terms of social justice and just speaking out. So I've got one of those. I've got my Dennis Rodman back-to-back ball. I've got some random stuff. Dominique Wilkins, who back in my time was, huge. I don't know if anybody remembers him now. And some other kind of just random stuff. I've got autographs for all the Pistons in that era, except for Bill Laimbeer. It is apparently impossible to find a Bill Laimbeer autograph. So
really? Now, are you a guy who will like troll like message boards and auction sites? Like, where do you come up with your memorabilia?
Oh God, I hope my wife isn't watching this. I do my best to stay.
I doubt she is. It's probably just you and me. Maybe Rip.
It wouldn't be the first time she's not watched something I've done. Didn't even see my Relativity Fest segment. But anyway, still love you. I do my best to stay off the auction sites. I am really bad at auctions or really good at auctions, depending on how you look at things. And I will suddenly have random things that I really shouldn't have and really shouldn't afford. So I do my best to stay off of that. Growing up, I was a big comics and basketball fan, so I would go to all the conventions and those things, get the signatures back in those ways. But again, I'm trying my best not to get anything else. And the boss has said, let's not get any more signed memorabilia or any more comics or guitars.
Yeah, let's dial it back a little bit. So
very strict around here.
Did you cash in among all of the different asset classes that have just exploded in value, right? I mean, it's whether it's the valuation of a private company, right, in private equity exchanges, or the equities markets or real estate or whatever. Of all things, trading cards, basketball cards, baseball cards exploded in value late 2020 and throughout 2021. Were you part of that game? Would you have a little side hustle going on, or did you hang on to all your oldies and goodies?
I hung on to almost everything. My parents lost a few things along the way, but again, I have a pretty extensive comic book collection. Most of them, not most of them, but there are quite a few large items. The second Iron Man, second X-Men. I used to have the first Wolverine, Incredible Hulk 181. I just sold that and actually bought this guitar, my new gem. Did pretty well on that. I think I bought it for about $275, which when I was 17, my parents would have killed me had they known. Yeah. And I sold it for, let's say, substantially more.
Attaboy. I dig it. I won't ask what kind of guitar that is, because then people could Google it. So we'll be discreet. Are you a guitar player?
In any other city in America, I would be a guitar player. In Nashville, I say no, because every single person in Nashville can play the guitar. The bus driver plays the guitar better than me. The person working at McDonald's plays better than me. So if I was back in DC, if I was back in Milwaukee, yeah, absolutely, I play the guitar. In Nashville, I just tell everybody no. I'm more of a guitar collector in Nashville than I am a player. It's not, no. Too much competition. No thanks.
Oh, man. All right. So you bounced around all over the country, law school in DC. Was it Catholic University? Where'd you go?
That is right. The Catholic University of America, Columbus School of Law.
There you go. I dig it. So how did you make your way from, it's a major legal market, CUA is a great school. You had friends that were going to Denver and Seattle, and I'm sure quite a few stayed in DC. How did you make the jump to Music City?
Well, it's funny. I interview a lot of people, and anytime there's a weird move or a long distance move, I just go ahead and ask, who was the girl, who was the guy? Yeah. It's always about relationships, right? Yeah. I was in DC. I was really thinking about moving to Seattle at the time. And instead I had a baby. So that kind of affected my decision to stay there. My little, she's 11 now. Yeah. So yeah, I had a baby, and then, with a baby, you quickly find out all the things you weren't thinking about. In DC, we were 30s. No one had a kid, at least not in my group had a kid, because we all went to law school and been doing other things. We quickly realized that houses we had bought or places we lived in were not really appropriate for kids. Yeah. We lived in a school district where the middle school was a third at capacity. And that's amazing. No, those schools at a third of capacity, because nobody who could would send their children there. So all the public schools at that time were like 10 grand. And of course, 10 grand is nothing now, apparently. But it just didn't work out for us. We wanted some place with a little more breathing room. So we moved out here. It was closer to her parents, closer to my parents at the time. And yeah, that's how we got here. Honestly, did not think it was going to be 10 years, but we've had a good run.
Nice. Now, is that only child, or do you have others?
I've got another one. I've got an 11-year-old and a 1-year-old, because I like to complicate things.
Yeah, that's right. You can start to see the teenage years and you think, why not start over?
I was literally looking at cars again, thinking, you know what? We're not far from a 2-seater. We could finally get that 2-seater. Looking at my law school loan, being like, yeah, we're almost done. And then all of a sudden, took another path. But I mean, you have kids too. Yeah. Cost wise, they make no sense. No economics person would actually ever decide to have children, but they are awesome. I mean, of all the things I've ever done in life, raising 2 kids is by far the most important and the most rewarding, even though it is the most costly and the most stressful. We could have a lot more guitars and comic books and sailboats had it not been for them, but there's no replacing them.
Yeah, man. So many people view children through the lens of like they're just a cost now. And it's funny because, for tens of thousands of years, having children was an economic benefit. You had more people to work the family farm. You had another kid to work in the shop. You had whatever. As you know, society urbanized over the last, call it 150 years, 200 years. All of a sudden, the calculus, so to speak, shifted. And now it's like, well, we need a bigger apartment. We need a bigger house. We need a bigger car. We need, and then the cost of education goes up. And so, people look at it and say, oh, well, how could you ever afford it? And, it's like, well, how do you ever find time to go to law school and work and have a hobby and do whatever? And, it's like people are resilient. And, my wife and I have made a lot of conscious decisions because we each come from a big families. And, we've now with 4 kids, we have a big family. And it's like, yeah, we live in a smaller house than we otherwise would, with a dated kitchen, and we drive used vehicles and we do whatever. But it's like, but there's so much joy, And so, yeah, it's absolutely true. And so kudos on taking the plunge for a second time, a decade later, the sequel.
And it is amazing. I mean, when I went to school, when I went to college, college was a little under $4,000 a year, University of Wisconsin. My 1-year-old is in daycare that's about $10,000. And it's like, whoa.
And that's cheap, by the way.
What's that?
And that's cheap daycare too. Like that's,
It really is. It really is the cheapest we could find once you wait through the wait list for 7 months.
Yeah. No, it's funny. My dad and his brothers talk about how they could work a summer job and pay for an entire year of college. I'm like, now you can't work a job that requires a degree for a full year, to say nothing of a summer job, and pay for a whole year of college. It's crazy. Yeah. It's absolutely wild. Hey, so Andrew, you posted something on LinkedIn that I want to ask you about, and then I want to pivot and hear a little bit more about, Page One and what you guys have coming down the horizon. But you posted something, and forgive me for paraphrasing, I didn't write it down directly, but something to the effect of, brainstorming is good insofar as it doesn't devolve into venting, and you've got to make sure that it sticks to planning. So I'm curious, what was the context for you posting that? And how do you and the Page One team hold each other accountable and implement that?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to post things that are somewhat resourceful as well as a little bit fun. Be sure to follow me if you haven't. That was on an article about the Beatles recording. I'd say I'm probably as much of a Beatles fan as other people, not necessarily, the biggest, but the point is, I feel like a lot of times, especially in larger meetings, you have these situations where people just want to complain and then they feel better about it. And you get to the end of these meetings and people feel better. They really do, because they got it off their chest, but you haven't accomplished anything. You really do need to make sure that you're having meetings where you have goals, where you have an agenda, where you're keeping track of the time, and that you have takeaways from it. Because it's so easy to slip into that situation where everyone just starts going. The loudest people, and all this is true, the loudest people take over. They keep going through. People don't want to have, solutions. They just want to show their passion, right? There's some of you out there who, let me be loud about this. It'll show you how much I care. No, it doesn't. It shows me how much you're wasting my time. I want to come up with, KPIs, with a priority, with whatever we need to do, so that when we walk away from this meeting, we're addressing the actual problem, because we just don't have time in the day for everyone's venting session. Now, again, sometimes you need a venting session, but if we're going to vent, let's have a one-on-one. Let's have a one-on-two maybe. Let's not get a group of people together and think we're going to solve something just to get it off our chest.
Yeah, I think that's important. Do you have any formal frameworks that you use for that? I ask, there's an organization that I became aware of and fell in love with. And then because the world is so small, it turns out one of the professors in my MBA, who's a private equity guy, purchased the company unbeknownst to me right before I even learned that they existed. So it's called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and their famous book is Traction. Do you guys use that or something similar to that to hold yourselves accountable and build that structure?
We used to use that system. We kind of use a little bit more of a blend now. I read a lot, those EOS books, and there's like 4 of them that are literally the same book, a little bit shuffled around. They've got some great points in them. I'm also a big fan of Vern Harnish, Rockefeller Habits. We do a lot of those as well. It really is about reading as much as you can and taking the little ideas from each of them that work the best. Another big one for me has always been the Checklist Manifesto. You really need to write things down. You really need to make sure that you're actually hitting on them. We all think we can remember everything, and we can't. I'm always amazed by those waiters and waitresses, servers, that go around the table and they remember absolutely everything. That's not real life. Most people can't do that. So getting together a checklist of the things we need to address, getting together a written statement that we follow up with in terms of what we're going to do. I really like using Trello. You can do little cards on there to keep track of things, but it's really about, setting up the expectation that we're going to have takeaways, we're going to have things for everyone to do, and we're going to have accountability. I think we made a lot of progress in life. We went up about 40% in revenue over the last 2 years. It really is all about accountability and just setting the expectation. The idea that people go into a meeting thinking at the end of this meeting, we're going to hopefully solve this. We're going to have some takeaways. Whereas a lot of companies, you go into the meeting thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna have it out over this meeting, or we're gonna have our little silo groups where we're all just infighting, or nothing's gonna come of this. And when you walk in with that mentality, you're absolutely gonna walk out with that. People who choose to be unhappy will always get what they want.
Yeah, that's right. I like that. All right, so Andrew, I want to conclude here by turning it over to you and hearing about what's going on at Page One, which full disclosure, obviously, between Discovery Master having been, you guys were, an early kind of a proponent or fan, or you let us play around a little bit when a sandbox we built in your environment. Our services business, Produce Discovery Group, we've referred some work to each other, done projects together. So we're big fans of you guys, and would love to hear a little about what's new with you guys and what's going on. What should people expect?
Absolutely. And first off, I want to say, for all those who are going to send me hate mail, picking up a bottle is like breathing. It's easy to do when you're not thinking about it, but when you think about it, it's always going to be awkward. You can't do it right. So I know I picked that up several times awkwardly. You don't need to let me know. Yeah, at Page One, I think it's really about, we've got 4 new core values that we put in there. We really are living out our core values. We are, again, heading in a good place. I think we have a lot more accountability than maybe we have in the past. There's a lot of great things on the horizon for us. Last year we were on the Inc. 5000 list for the 5,000 fastest growing private companies for the first time. We've got 2, we'll surely have 3 in a little bit of the certified great places to work. And the driving force for that, and anyone who's seen my videos knows this, I really think has been engagement. We do a lot of pro bono work. We do a lot of social justice. We do a lot of community outreach. And I see other people do this, but when they do it, it always feels very marketing. It always feels like they're not really doing it for their people so much as just other people to see. And that's missing the whole point. You need to be able to find something that your people are concerned about, that they care about, because you need to make sure you're increasing their engagement. I really don't care what other people think about the things we do. If they like it, great, fantastic. If they don't, it's okay. Because when our team feels like they can change the world, that's our superpower. People do better work. People care. They're not just clocking in, clocking out. They're making the world a better place. So I think that's one of the biggest things for us, is that, again, having that highly engaged team that's going to be there for you because they think they're changing the world through this work is huge. And so we're going to continue to ride that, continue to push on that message, continue to find more people for our team. And we're always hiring, so reach out. Continue to find more people that believe in that message, because, again, it really is our superpower.
I have to put you on the spot and ask, what are the 4 core values?
I can remember them.
Yeah.
Continuously learning.
Yep.
constantly dependable,
Yep.
caring about our community and our team, and committed to client success.
I love it. They all start with C.
That's right.
In our experience, they've all been true. So quick plug, 15 on the 15th. Check out Page One's website for more information on that. And then I think you guys have a virtual summit coming up at some point this summer, right?
Absolutely. Do make sure to follow our LinkedIn page and check out our website as well, pageonelegal.com. We do our 15 on the 15th, our webinar series every month where we do a little around 15 minutes. If I'm on it, it tends to go more 25 or 30, but we do a little segment where we try to talk
false
about
advertising, Andrew.
I didn't come up with the name. I would much rather do it on the 30th and just call the 30th on the 30th, buy myself some more time. But we do that webinar series, which we think is things that are important to our eDiscovery clients. We also do the yearly Virtual One conference. That is coming up in June. We're currently looking for speakers. So if you know of anybody or if you'd like to speak, please let us know. Last year was a huge success for us. We had a vice president of the WWE. I'm a huge fan. We had a general counsel for New Balance. We had all sorts of people from great law firms. So if anyone would like to speak, please let us know. We'd love to have you. And then too, I'd like to plug, and also we've been doing a lot of pro bono work, as I mentioned. I recently joined the board of Inc. Against Cancer, Cancer Warriors Foundation. Those guys are amazing. They really are. They help people who have cancer in their families to basically do the things they want to do. They like to think of themselves as being the Aflac of cancer. So it's not about just treatment, but they help people with their rent when they need to. People who've had dreams of going to the beach and never made it, they help them and their families make it there one last time or one final time. We're helping somebody in a limo ride. She's always wanted to ride a limo. Things like that. So do make sure to check them out as well on LinkedIn, Inc. Against Cancer, Cancer Warriors Foundation. You know, Ryan, not making this political. I think there's so many people out there who are depressed, who are down because they're watching the news, they're watching social media, and they're seeing so much negativism out there. They really are thinking that things are in the worst place ever and things are getting worse. There's always been bad things, but there still are so many good people out there and good organizations out there that are really making great things happen. So, anyone who sees this, I urge you, find something you can do. And it doesn't have to be a giant thing. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, but look in your pantry. Are there things you're not going to eat and that's going to spoil? Go ahead and give them to a local food bank. Give a little bit of money to the local food bank. Follow groups like Inc. Against Cancer. Follow groups like Life Preservers Project. We've been doing work with them about anti-human trafficking. And I can tell you the situation in Ukraine right now is going to absolutely cause a massive amount of human trafficking. So, be looking for things like that where you can help. But again, just don't have your head down. Don't be in despair. Go out there. These organizations will make you feel good. They really will. Go out there and help them and just have that joy. Like I said earlier, let that be your superpower.
Yeah. Well, I can't think of a better note to end on than that, man. So appreciate you coming on the show. Cheers.
Appreciate it. Thank you.